Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today to discuss the silver sector, a very exciting sector, and I want to start by everybody giving a brief introduction to let the audience know who you are. Jeff Clark, let's start with you.
Jeff Clark, thegoldadvisor.com. Everything flows from there. Free newsletters, paid newsletters, books, everything.
Peter.
Peter Spina, the president of GoldSeek and SilverSeek.com. It's going to be our 30th year on the internet. I've been an investor in junior stocks and a big gold and silver bug for the last 3 decades, so it's a pleasure to be here.
Peter Krauth.
So the Great Silver Bull, my book, 2 newsletters that focus on silver, Silver Stock Investor and Silver Advisor, which is a free letter. And like Jeff said, everything flows from there.
Glenn Jessome.
Glenn Jessome, I'm the president and CEO of Silver Tiger Metals. I'm the token miner, so they brought me up here, and we've been in 30 years serially building big silver mines in Mexico. So really excited to hear what these smart people have to say. Every year I come up here, I feel so good when I leave. They tell me silver's going to like $9 million, and I just leave, and I'm happy for a month or so I'm really looking forward to this again.
Well, I want to talk about sentiment in the silver space a little bit because it does seem to be quite low, particularly when it comes to the mining equities. The metal itself had a great year in 2024. However, I think a lot of people who got into the physical silver space came in during the silver squeeze era, where there was a lot of talk of silver going to the moon, getting back to $50. Now that that hasn't materialized, I think a lot of stackers who found themselves buying in at silver at around $30 plus are now quite disheartened. Maybe you could give us some insight into what you think about the current sentiment in the space, and also any potential catalyst you're watching for here in 2025 that you think could turn things around. Jeff, I'll start with you.
Well, we know from history that silver is very spiky. There's been 10, 12 major spikes in silver since the 1970s, and the time in between it is very boring. It doesn't do very much, and then all of a sudden it takes off, and the move is, frankly, sometimes violent. So you have to be prepared. You have to be in my opinion, before that happens, and that includes the equities. So we've been flat or down in a bear market for silver for 4.5 years, something like that, right after the COVID peak. I think sentiment will change at some point simply because history says so. It's changed many times in the past. As far as catalysts go, it could be anything. Roughly half of all the catalysts for gold and silver since the 1970s have been black swans. So you don't have to try to predict what the catalyst is going to be. You just have to be invested at an appropriate, meaningful level before the next one kicks in.
Yeah, I'm a contrarian investor, and watching the sentiment in the silver market right now is quite remarkable. We have the gold price at or near record highs. We have the silver gold ratio near 90, just absolutely like this, no one even cares about what's going on. Yet we have huge structural supply deficits. We have a lot of things going in favor of silver right now. The silver squeeze didn't really materialize as many people had hoped, but we are closer to an actual silver squeeze now than we were years ago. Inventories are getting drained, and we're in a very unique position right now with the gold price taking off, and the silver price is starting to push into some really interesting territory where we could see another big move in the silver price. And as Jeff says, these things happen very quickly. It is a very volatile metal, and you have to have an appropriate time perspective and stomach for this market at times. But if you take a mid and longer term view of this market, I think the risk reward is quite appealing right now.
Peter.
In one word, in terms of the disconnect, I think for me that word is patience. And so I like to say that patience is the rarest commodity. But if you have it, you can do very well, especially if you do your research and you know where you stand. And I agree with comments we've heard so far is have an appropriate allocation. For me, that means for everything across the space, from the physical right through, you can start with ETFs if you're more comfortable with that, and then down through the large royalty companies, the producers, the mid-tiers, and the juniors. And it's all a question of comfort. You don't have to have exposure to all of these different sectors on the equity side. But of course, where the highest risk exists is where the highest potential reward is. And when we talk about things like what some of the drivers could be for silver to start moving, things I'm watching are, like Peter here said, the draining of inventories, and we've seen this happen since early 2021. If you look at the large exchanges where the identifiable inventories sit, we've seen them really draw down from early 2021. They've started to move sideways now, but at very low levels. I mean, supplies are very tight. That was actually my premise last year. I was talking about this little under a year ago. I was saying, you know, if we're seeing silver not move meaningfully in this kind of market when we've had 4 years of deficits, what would explain that? And I believe the answer was that the big consumers were tapping into these physical supplies, so they didn't have to put pressure on new mine supply or new supply at all. They could just draw down on these secondary inventories, and they were able to do that at spot prices. So that, again, did not especially help or do anything to push silver prices higher. But I think that going back little under a year, so February, March last year, when things really started to move, I think that's when the market started to clue into just how serious these deficits were, and that's how you got silver go from $22 to $35. It's obviously pulled back now, but again, I echo what I've just heard. You have to be in this space. You can't benefit or profit from it if you're not there. You don't have to go to the juniors. You know, I talk about in my book about how in the last cycle you had two of the biggest market cap companies in the silver space, Silver Wheaton at different time periods, but Silver Wheaton and Pan American Silver did something like 16 or 17 times over a matter of a number of years. So if they can do that, imagine what the juniors can do.
Well, I'm ecstatic about the silver price. Sorry, I'm a miner. We spent the last 8 years and almost $200 million getting ready to break ground on Mexico's next silver mine in the next several months. And the value proposition for true silver producers that are profitable is incredible. Go look at the Ayas, the Orlas, the Silvercrests, the Gatos of the world. Their valuations are all in the $2 billion. So, you know, I hear all this about it's $2,700. It's $31 almost, gold and silver. We mined when we started at single-digit silver and $275 gold. These prices are incredible for those that build profitable mines. I just have to throw that out there. As I said, I love to come up here. At spot prices today, our project returns an IRR of 55%. That's incredible. I don't know what the disconnect with exploration and sentiment is, but as a miner, when I see that kind of price, it's incredible. I know these guys, they know so much more about the demand and supply curve. I said this last year. I'm a real simple person because we're going to build Mexico's next great silver mine. That's a fact. We've done the work, we've done the feasibility, we're ready to go. That being said, it's about the number of true silver mines in the world. And I said this when I was here last year, and a year has gone by. In 2026, we'll be down to 55 silver mines in the world. In 2027, it will be 44. And in 2028, it will be 38. Write those numbers down. There are 2 or 3 that I know are going to come online. Sure, there'll be some large mines that'll get built that'll have some buyback. True silver mines. So I'm pretty excited about the price. I'm just hoping it's going to stay right there in about 18 months when we become probably on that list, I would say number 45 in 2027, early. So yeah, I'm in a totally different place than you guys are, but I do see the disconnect. Something's changed. We've been doing this for a long, long time. And I've said this here before, and I'm going to take the time to explain my goalpost theory, okay? And my goalpost theory is that we always had a goalpost, I thought, where if you were an explorer developer, you were here. And if you got to production, here. Something's happened because at 2,700, I don't want to depress anyone, but at 2,731, all of these juniors and developers should be at all-time highs. They're not, and they're not going there. I don't know what the disconnect is. So that valuation proposition, that goalpost's over here. Now, my other goalpost that we've seen through our careers was if you get to production, and we've built 3 large mines in Mexico, 2 of them sold to majors in our careers, 2 more we took to permit, because they don't buy drill holes, they buy permitted projects. We sold to majors, one of those 4 years ago to Agnico. We have 2 companies ready to build in Mexico now, Silver Tiger, the one I'm running is one of them. That being said, that value proposition for when you got to production is here. That's gone way over here. Go look at the valuations of good, profitable silver mines. Aya, Silvercrest, Orla, Gatos, incredible. $2 billion market caps. And that's the reward because the price is so high. You just are printing money and you get rewarded. I can't explain what's happened, but I don't see that changing. And I know everybody talks about sentiment. How much higher does the price have to go? I think the future is the projects, the 1 in 1,000 that gets to production, and that's the number, 1 in 1,000. That's your value proposition. Those are the companies that you, and I'm not being self-serving, I'm giving you my general view. I happen to have one of those companies. We've worked 8 years to be here for me to say that, so it's not like I would have planned it last week. And a couple $100 million and a couple 100,000 meters of drilling and feasibilities and PEAs and all those things. That's how it's done. But those are the companies I think that are going to have great value going forward because of this price. I can't explain the disconnect. We should be at all-time highs as juniors, and we're not.
Well, let's talk about specific areas of the silver mining sector where you're all seeing value. Obviously, it's a small handful of stocks compared to something like the gold sector. There's very few pure silver producing mines. It mostly comes as a byproduct. So I'm wondering, where are you looking when it comes to those pure play silver mines? And where are you seeing value today? You can feel free to mention individual names if you want, or just different parts of the silver sector. Jeff, I'll start with you.
So I think first I would say that the disconnect has to do with how strong the S&P is, how strong the NASDAQ is, how strong crypto and Bitcoin is. Where's the money? All the money is over there. So I think when there's a shift and the money begins to come into our sector, volumes are at record low. Last year in 2024, the volume on the venture exchange was at record lows for decades. So when we just get even just a little bit more volume, we're going to see a shift in sentiment and a change in these stock prices. So I tend to invest further down the ladder. My dad was a gold prospector. I kind of followed in those footsteps. So, I'm looking more at the juniors and things like that. So for me, I love my silver basket. That is Vizsla Silver. Big asset. Stock has been strong. That's going to go. Dolly Varden Silver, I'm a Sean Kun fan. I think that stock is going to go. Outcrop Silver in Colombia, I've actually been there. I spent a week in Colombia at the projects. I did a huge report. You can read it for free on our site. I think that's going to go from probably 35 million ounces to probably 100 in a couple years. And then Suma Silver. They got their resource updates here recently on both projects. The key message there actually wasn't the resource update, but it was showing how much potential was still there. So that's where I particularly see value right now.
On the disconnect question, I also kind of want to say the same thing as Jeff is saying. The gold bull market is being driven by lots of other parts of the world. It hasn't really been recognized in the West. The West is focused on AI, on crypto, on this casino, gambling mentality. Everyone's distracted. But here we have the gold price being driven by a lot of other parts of the world. And it wasn't until the last, I think, Q3 of this last year that the silver and gold ETFs finally saw this multi-year trend of selling, disinvestment finally turned around. And now we're starting to see the initial interest starting in the West. So we're starting to see the initial indication that this is changing. I like to look at the gold and silver ratio as a sentiment indicator, and we're almost at historic lows with that. We're seeing almost 90 ounces of silver equals 1 ounce of gold. That kind of reflects the sentiment in this sector, in the mining stocks and in the junior exploration stocks. But it is so easy right now to buy these miners. They're making on the gold side, in many cases, $1,000 plus an ounce. it is important to recognize that the costs have really gone up for these gold and silver miners the last decade. Back in 2010-11, when the price peaked, the gold production costs were $700, $800 an ounce. Today, it's around $1,400, $1,500 an ounce and rising. So it's kind of like an accordion. The profit margins expand and grow throughout these cycles. But right now, we're in a really good part of the cycle where the miners are just cashing up. So that's going to get recognized. There's not too many options on the silver side. It's really a small basket or handful of companies to choose from. So when the silver market does get exciting, I would expect these valuations to overshoot their true values in the marketplace. But right now we're on the opposite spectrum. So there's so many opportunities, it's kind of hard to know what to choose from. I've been buying Silver Corp recently. They had a correction in their share price with some financings they did, and the market just decided to slaughter their share price. They're expanding their production, and they're doing about 7 or 8 million silver equivalent ounces in China right now. Low production cost of $11 to $12 an ounce, all in sustaining costs, huge margins. They have a huge cash position and investments on their balance sheet. They're expanding now into Ecuador. They're adding some gold and copper component to that. So that's a lot of these silver miners have been kind of diversifying into other metals. So there's no real full true silver play. On the exploration side is where I kind of have most of my capital deployed. It's in the silver side, I would say Abra Silver is probably one of my largest ones there. That has been an amazing growth story. They've been adding over 100 million ounces of silver, 1.3 maybe million ounces of gold. They continue to hit new targets around there. They had a pre-feasibility study just came out. Kinross wrote them a big check recently. So that's an easy one. Kootenay Silver, that's one I've been accumulating down here. They have well over 250 million ounces of measured and indicated, but they have another project that they've been just hitting left and right on, the Kalumba project. That has yet to have a maiden resource on it, and that's going to be coming out, I believe, this year, and that will keep adding ounces. So there's a lot of leverage in those in these silver stocks, a lot of ounces per share. And when I started investing as a teenager in gold and silver stocks, my first investments were in Vista Gold and in Silver Standard. And back then, Silver Standard was trading under like $1 an ounce. It had like 20 to 30 ounces per share leverage back then. And this stock went all the way up to, I believe, $40 or $50 a share. When the silver price took off, it really got going. So you can see that there's a lot of potential. And a lot of these stocks have come back down from their 2021, 2022 highs, 50, 60, 70, 80%, 90%. It's quite remarkable. So there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot of, it's kind of hard to know what to pick from, but I do like a jurisdictional area right now. Mexico is getting better and better as well. So I think a lot of what had happened years ago under the prior administration, now I think people need to realize things are changing in there, and that is the largest silver producing nation in the world. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of silver and gold left to be discovered and mined there. So I like that as a jurisdiction right now again too.
Peter Krauth.
Thanks. So something I want to just point out is I don't take credit for this. Friend and colleague Tavi Costa put some fantastic research out. Follow him on Twitter. I highly recommend it. And a few months back, he put out a chart where he looked at the S&P and he said his idea was if precious metals producers in the S&P were a sub-index, how would they look and how would they compare to all the other sectors of the S&P? So he was shocked, so was I. It turns out that they're the single most profitable sector of the entire S&P. So they have 40% profit margins. It's just incredible. And this is obviously not being recognized. I think that, if their share prices haven't reflected that, but their cash flow is there. And I think that they're starting to use that cash flow to go out and acquire. They obviously, for the last decade, haven't been spending much on exploration, so they're using their cash to go the safe route, acquire existing producing projects and companies. They don't have to worry about permitting. They know the profits, and that becomes immediately accretive. So we've seen that start to happen. About a year ago or more, I was starting to say that we're going to start to see this M&A wave come. And sure enough, last year, September hit, we had two of the biggest deals in the silver space. We had Kerr buyout Silvercrest. We had First Majestic take over Gato Silver, and the space just got even smaller than it already was. So I happen to think that we're already moving down a notch from there in terms of where the next activity is going to come. And I think it's more in the mid-tiers, in the developers. We're going to start to see one acquiring another. We're going to start to see mergers of maybe more like equals in that space. And I think that that's where sort of the next nearest term opportunity lies. I like names like Go Gold. I like Discovery Silver. Both of those are Mexico plays, like Glenn was saying. I think that there's a lot of built-in opportunity there. I agree with Peter. Things are getting better in Mexico. I think that the new administration is more pragmatic, understanding of where they are and where the economy, how the economy is driven. Mexico is a big producer of silver, of course, the world's biggest producer, but many other resources as well. And so I think that they're going to come to terms with that, and they're going to become more reasonable. So, as I said, Go Gold, very interesting. They have their Los Ricos South project that they're moving forward, anticipating an important permit coming potentially in the next few months. That will be a big deal. We've seen actually in the last few weeks, there have been a couple of companies, important companies that have gotten permits in Mexico, so that the signs are there. Vino Silver got a permit. I think it's Grupo Mexico that got also a few permits. So we've seen movement in the right direction in Mexico. And so if you're comfortable taking a chance with Mexico, I think that we're going to see big gap ups in prices with Mexican plays in general. So from Go Gold, I also like Discovery Silver, which has the world's largest silver equivalent deposit. We're talking about 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent. That's really something that's a major play. When they start producing silver, that's going to start bringing significant amounts of silver to a market that badly needs more silver. And I also like New Pacific, again, sort of in that same size. They're a Bolivia play. They have 2 larger projects, Carangas and Silver Sands, moving both of those forward. Again, I think that, jurisdictionally, it's something that people maybe need to get comfortable with. But if you do Bolivia in the right way, and I think that they are doing that, they're connected with other players in Bolivia the right way. And I think that that's really being managed and moved forward very soundly. So these are 3 names that I think people should look at that, given the jurisdictional risk, which I think is going to recede over the next few months, I think that these have a lot of built-in potential upside.
Fantastic. And Glenn, could you give us a deeper dive on Silver Tiger and also insights you can provide into Mexico as a jurisdiction, given that you have such an inside view of that area?
Absolutely, Jesse. I was a little worried about the question to name your favorite silver company. I was going to have a hard time not saying Silver Tiger. And I hear the president's brilliant. I'm kidding. Folks, here we are. Love Go Gold. We'll talk about that in a minute. Look, we're at Halifax. We've been in Mexico for a long time. We're a group. I'm a securities lawyer. For the president and CEO, Brad Langell, I built Go Gold. I'm one of the largest shareholders of that company. It's a brilliant company. You didn't expect I was going to say another company instead of Silver Tiger. But pay good attention to that company. Brad's going to build an amazing mine there. His DFS out, $100 million in the bank. The rest of the capital's easy. It will be the next, with me, a great silver mine in Mexico. So full disclosure, I serve as corporate secretary for that company. Several years later, Silver Tiger came along, and when we acquired this beautiful El Tigre asset, I became the president and CEO. I'm going to give you a snapshot of what that looks like. That's acquiring that asset in 2017, getting to work and raising $120 million. The last 3.5 years during the AMLO administration, when everybody said mining in Mexico was over, we raised 100 million Canadian dollars from the smartest financial institutions long-only precious metals in the world. Franklin Templeton, Sprott Asset Management, Van Eck, and Merck. They said, here's your money, get to work. And we got to work, and we drilled a couple 100,000 meters. We delivered an MRE, 2 MREs updated, a PEA and a PFS on the pit, which we'll build on. Snapshot of the pit. At spot prices today, it's an $86 million CapEx, low. It generates an NPV of $350 million. It makes $500 million over the 10-year mine life, and it's an incredible, incredible, incredible asset. That's door number one. Then we transition underground, 5 million ounces. That should be built, if I'm right, and when we get our permits by the end of 2026. It will take us another year to build the underground, which will be funded from the open pit. That's how it happens in Mexico. Open pit, then underground, another 5 million ounces. And I'm not going to bore you with the details. I will have the same production profile as a lot of my good friends and peers at Aya, Silvercrest, Orla, and Gatos. Just go look at their valuations. That's the production profile we'll have. Silver Tiger, we've been coming here for a few years. Everything we said we did, we've done. Those are our 2 companies out of Halifax. So nice to hear you mention it, Peter. It's nice to get recognized. We have 2 in Halifax. The guy came up and he said, I've been looking around this show, and I found these 2 companies, and they're the only 2 developers that are ready to build big silver mines in the next 2 years, and they're both from Halifax. I was pretty proud of that. So yeah, we are. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're never leaving Mexico. A couple of years ago, look at my website. Go look at the interviews I did. Every one of them. Play a few of them. I said a year before she became president that Claudia Sheinbaum would be remembered as one of the greatest presidents, a female also, wonderful thing, in Mexican history. I said she would be pro-business, pro-investment, and I said this, she would create a top 10 world economy for Mexico and the Mexican people. And everybody said I was the stupidest person in the world. Because AMLO had canceled open pits. Not only was going to, he'd cancel it, mining was over, seemed like a nice young fella, but you're some stupid. That's what I got. And you know what? But I kept saying what I thought. And I'm going to sit here today and say I was 100% right. She gave a speech last weekend, and she laid out her 6-year plan. And do you know what Claudia Sheinbaum said? I am going to welcome foreign investment. I'm going to welcome mining foreign investment, and I'm going to make Mexico a top 10 economy in the world. And that's full circle. It's been a pleasure to work with them. Mexico is re-rating. We've been through 5 presidents. The last one was a bit difficult, I'll admit. There were no permits issued. He slowed us down at Silver Tiger. I still raised $100 million during that process. At Sentiment, lower valuations than I should, but we still did it. I didn't need a permit till now to build. She came into power on October 1st. We knew before that she'd be fantastic. Her minister, Marcelo Ebrard, she put in place to run the economy, pro-business. He negotiated the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement. He's got the keys. They have been transparent. They've been communicating with us. I'm shocked there weren't a lot of permits before Christmas. But what we see is Mexico is going to re-rate. Very soon, you're going to see the first, remember I said this, underground and open pit permits in Mexico. When that happens, all these companies that are being talked about up here that are in Mexico, I think you're going to see them double for doing nothing. The sentiment will come back in that market. Our proposition for Go Gold and for Silver Tiger is from development to that huge delta that I talked about earlier that's created. That's where the value is going to be in the mining business. Find the developers that have spent the last decade getting to right here so that they can build their mines with these kind of prices. Those are the company. Forget us. Forget mine. Find those and you'll make a lot of money in the next 2 to 3 years. That's really, I think, what the trade is here. 2 on Mexico. Quickly in the short term, we're going to be permits and the prices are going to, I think, double across the board. And then those who put it in production are going to get an alpha return across that delta where those posts have spread. Anyway, I think I've said enough. I better give some time for somebody else.
Well, we have reached the end of our time, but before we do go, let's have everybody let people know briefly where they can go online to find more of your work, to find more information about you. Jeff Clark.
Everything falls under the umbrella of thegoldadvisor.com. Everything's there. Paid letters, free letters, books, everything. So I'm quite proud of it. After we acquired the Gwen Preston's business, built a new website, so we're ready to rock and roll.
Goldseek.com, silverseek.com, and on Twitter or X, at Goldseek is the handle name, at Goldseek.
So I'm working with Jeff, so you'll find my work on his website. You can go to silverstockinvestor.com. It'll bring you there anyways, and my free letter Silver Advisor is on Gold Advisor. You just go to thegoldadvisor.com/registration and you can sign up there. Other than that, my book, and I'm on Twitter and on LinkedIn, so you can follow me. I'm pretty active.
We're at silvertigermetals.com, but if you're hiking the Sierra Madre, 100 kilometers from the U.S. border, just come on by for a visit.
Fantastic. A big round of applause for our panel today. Thank you so much.